Welcome to Tony at 12. I'm Tony LeBlanc, and today I'm in conversation with Mother Samantha Martel, Alderney's new vicar. And I have to say that I can call her Samantha. I have special permission. Good to see you.
Hi, Tony. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. Absolutely. Now, a, a good Channel Islands surname by marriage. Was there a Channel
Yes,
Islands connection?
there must be somewhere along the line. We haven't found it yet. Obviously, the Channel Islands Martel is a single L and we're double L, but I have it on good authority that it was only when we went across to France they added the extra L. So we've probably got many relations around here.
So DNA exercises next week.
Quite possibly.
Now, your career before taking the class was involved in agriculture.
Yeah, yeah. So I had a bit of background with my grandfather being a butcher.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time with him in Spain as a child. We lived in various parts of the country and the world. And I ended up in farming pigs, and then had a bit of a farm shop going on, and yeah, making sausages. So yeah,
And
I brought
and
my
it
sausage machine with me when we moved.
that's good. It was a lovely part of the world you were operating in, wasn't it?
Yes, West Sussex, very nice.
Goodwood. So
Yes,
horse racing, motor racing, and
yep,
pig raising.
and yeah, and pig. Didn't think of that actually.
So your calling, how did it happen?
It's one of those situations that when, hindsight's a wonderful thing. When you look back over time, you can actually see where God's working. Um, and I suppose the catalyst was I was making sausages and moved a massive sausage machine that I had at the time and ended up with some pressure fractures in my neck and in the base of my spine. And
Right.
it was when I was in hospital, God said, "Oh, good, you've stopped. Let's chat."
And did you actually feel that there was a voice within?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And at the time, I thought, crikey, this morphine's good stuff. But and then everything just started falling into place. I started getting involved in the local church because I wasn't able to work, so I was sort of hobbling to church on a Sunday,
Mm.
and just everything just felt, yeah, it felt like the layers were coming on in a very gentle, but actually in a right way.
Must have been a wonderful feeling.
It was no, it was scary.
Yeah. It's
It was
never
scary
knocked on
because
my door.
as you know, well, never say never, never
Well,
say
not
never.
so far.
People have run from the call for decades,
Yeah.
and you get got in the end.
Mm, mm, mm. So, what sort of training do you have to go through, and where did you have your ordination?
So the training now is slightly different depending on age. Everything comes, it's how much it's going to cost them. So I was trained over 3 years. It's sort of a distance learning. So the first year I would go to Oxford to Cuddesdon every Tuesday,
Hmm.
and we would have lectures there. And then sort of once every 6 weeks we would spend the weekend there, with a week in the summer and a week so Easter. So that was the first year. And then the Bishop of Portsmouth, so I was in Portsmouth Diocese at the time, and the Bishop wanted to have a more local pathway for people that didn't drive or had
Yeah.
proper full-time jobs. So we would have a Tuesday lectures in a church in Portsmouth. So that was the second 2 years. And again, same sort of idea. And we would all share a meal together. Christianity historically is very much about the fellowship side,
Yeah.
and being hospitable. And then I was ordained at Portsmouth Cathedral as a deacon in 2017. Yeah,
Right.
and then priested in 2018.
Wow. That's an interesting situation. Um, female progression within the church, it's gone quite a long way in a short space of time, hasn't it? Christine's my wife's cousin was, one of the early intakes, as it were. She used to come over on locum duties to Sark from her Bristol uh, area every year for a while. Yeah, so
Gosh.
we've sort of got used to it within the family. Were you surprised, before you actually were um, going through the ordination process, were you surprised up until then about the concept of female vicars?
I suppose, I suppose I hadn't really thought about it. I mean, it
No.
took 300 years, don't forget.
Yes, that's
So
right.
it's, it's not, it's not quick in normal terms. But I suppose being the job I had previously was a very male orientated,
Mm,
farming,
yeah.
butchery. So I suppose I'd been used to being a minority. So I hadn't really thought about it up until then.
Mm. But when it happened, you said, right, I'm going to take it. I'm going to get on with it, as it were. So if
Yeah,
we,
I didn't.
sorry,
Yeah, no. I didn't really think it was. As far as I was concerned, this was something that I felt compelled to be doing.
yeah.
And yeah, didn't really think of, I suppose, the consequences or the whys.
Mm, mm, mm. Interesting stuff. Um, if we sort of go forward, say perhaps 20, 25 years, do you think there's any likelihood of a female archbishop? Is there anything
Oh,
to stop that?
definitely.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, I think that will come, but I hope it comes in the right way. There's a lot of positions, and it's not just the church where, the politically correct person is being put into a role
Yeah,
rather
yeah,
than the correct person.
yeah.
I think, with any, from cleaner to archbishop to, leader of a political party, even
Yeah.
there
It-
needs to be, yeah, it needs to be the right person, and then that right person
uh,
can do wonders.
And it's meritocracy, isn't it? It's based on merit.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So we'll have to watch the space on that one. Now, so
it won't be me. I tell you that it won't be me.
we never know. Leading on from all this, then, how about the church's involvement with politics? Is it getting too involved?
I mean, Jesus was fairly radical
Yeah.
when you think back about his time. Um, I mean, the church, for me, should serve as a bit of a moral compass.
Hmm.
We should advocate for principles like justice, mercy, compassion, and they should be positively informing political decisions. The church should be reminding political leaders of these values and holding them to account. We talk about everything for the common good,
Mm.
and we should be pushing towards policies that reflect, I suppose, that dignity and that care for everybody, not just the few.
Problem is, though, that if you overdo it, you put people off, don't you?
It's the same with you can't please all
Mm.
the people all the time,
No, that's right, absolutely.
especially not as a parish priest.
But of course, I mean, there's always been a role in the House of Lords, hasn't there? The Lords temporal and the Lords spiritual. But up until the current incumbent, the archbishops have been tended to sort of work on the basis of how shall we put it politely? They've worked on the basis of being there, part of the establishment, but not interfering too much.
Yeah, I suppose they get the push from from their parishes and from
Yeah.
their diocese
Mm,
to be more vocal.
mm.
So I suppose it sort of goes both ways. And I know that they try and be apolitical, and they try and be very careful in what they do and what they say. Um, but again, they're going to get somebody's back up
Yeah,
with
yeah,
something.
yeah. That's life.
Yeah.
What are your views on this question of reparations? It's been said that the church commissioners would like to commit £1 billion for slavery, um, and they don't mention indentured labour in this. This is when the British Empire sort of exported people from India in the late Victorian, early Edwardian times to work in the West Indies. They don't mention that at all, but should we really be thinking about that when there's so much poverty in England?
The trouble is we've got to try and think about it all. I think the increased funding that they've accepted, and that's a target. It's
Yeah.
it's not an actual figure. I think it's, from what I've read, it's a target, and they're trying to promote the healing and justice through initiatives in disadvantaged communities.
Mm.
There was one I'd read that they were talking about funding black-led businesses,
Right.
supporting education and economic empowerment, and improving health outcomes. Um, I suppose it needs to be seen to be inspiring other institutions to
Mm.
recognize I suppose, and address their own historical links to slavery, because there's a lot of it. It's a very deeply woven web
Mm.
of history, that we're all everybody's part of over the years. And I suppose it's well, is it creating a collaborative approach to the repatriation justice?
Mm.
You can't change the history, but by understanding it and learning from it, we should be able to move forward
How far
and
back
not let
should you
things like that.
go? How far back should you go?
Crikey. I mean, I
I
I
mean,
love history,
for
but
example, for example, should we be thinking in terms of the Egyptians paying reparations to the Hebrews?
that's yeah. I mean, what where does it stop?
This is
That's
the
the
point.
problem.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm. So,
yeah. No, I don't.
really, we'll let other
That's the.
people, we'll let people wiser work that one out, shall we?
I think so. That's a very good point, Tony. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that.
The traditional cop out. Now, tell me, we're currently thinking about changing the title from church to community. Anglican church, now Anglican community. What's that all about?
It's just it's a different word, isn't it? They're trying to encourage parishes to think of, they call it a mixed ecology of worship. So making, I suppose, making the church culturally relevant now in many places is not having the services that they've always had. Um, but actually, when you look at one of the translations of the Bible where Jesus says to Peter, on this rock I will build my
Yeah,
church. Another translation says, on this rock I will build my community.
right, okay.
So it's the language we use, it's the language that people will understand and hopefully embrace. So I don't think he was actually saying, we're not going to be church now, we're going to be community. But if you think of the word Catholic just means universal.
Yeah,
So
that's
we're
right.
all part of the one holy Catholic and
Yeah,
apostolic
Holy
church. So
Catholic
again, it's
Church. Yeah.
yeah, and the word Catholic can set people off. Um, but it's again, it's helping people to understand, I suppose, why we're doing what we're doing and who we are, rather than getting bogged down by the language that we use.
But I mean, a lot of people, in my view, would say we don't understand Anglican Church, we don't understand Anglican community, we do understand Church of England.
Yes, well, they understand Church of England the way that they possibly historically how they that they've understood it. It's changed, and we have to change. We're
Mm,
being we are a very secular society now. Church is culturally irrelevant to so many people. My job is to make it relevant.
mm.
Why should what happened 2000 years ago be relevant to somebody here that's, struggling to make ends meet and struggling to feed the family?
Yeah, yeah. And of course the problem is, Samantha, that congregations are in decline all over England, aren't they? And the United Kingdom in general.
Yeah.
And some vicars are sort of running four churches at once on a Sunday.
Oh
Y-
gosh, at
What,
least.
yeah. What do you do to stop the rot?
I don't think you can, actually. I don't think in many ways you can't. Because if you look at a Sunday now, many families work 6 days a week.
Mm,
The Sunday's their only day to possibly do their shopping. The
yeah,
last thing you want to do is try and get a teenager out of bed on a Sunday morning to take them to church. I get that. I've had two. Um, but church isn't just a Sunday morning.
no,
Jesus never said, "Go and build me buildings and throw everybody in there on a Sunday morning." It's about church. It's about church being the community.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
about outward looking, and we have these beautiful buildings, and I love them. They're very expensive, but they can be a bit of a millstone around our neck, and we must stop thinking of church being 10 o'clock, 8 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, or whatever it is on a Sunday morning, but actually start building the relationships with people within the communities to make us relevant.
yeah, yeah. You see, when I was a kid, we feared God. We were brought up, on the basis that if you're really bad, if you're really naughty, you'll never go to heaven. That doesn't apply anymore, does it?
No, thankfully. That's, a,
Well, it
that's more
worked.
of a,
It worked
I
for
mean,
nearly 2,000 years.
that's no, absolutely. But that's why, teaching about Jesus and his unconditional love. And actually, there's nothing you can do to make God love you anymore, and there's nothing you can do to make God love you any less.
Okay.
It's yeah. So I
is it,
don't think the God. I mean, there are still obviously there are still religions and there are still teachings about the, the fear of God, and we do
yeah.
say it in some of the services as well.
Mm, mm, mm.
But it's not that's not what the New Testament's about.
It's interesting, isn't it, about showing the decline in the UK, for example, and the actual growth in Africa. What do you put
Yeah,
that
that's
down to?
amazing. Cultural relevance.
Yeah,
They're giving the people the chance and the space and the time to worship in the way that they want to. There isn't they don't have liturgy as we do. They still have they still have their routine, but it's much more spirit led with
mm,
them, and they get the chance to be loud. And if they don't know some of the words, or if they don't know when to sit down or stand up, it doesn't matter. It's much
yeah,
more of an included part of way of life.
mm.
And I think some of the African services go on for hours and hours and hours, and they stop and have lunch, and they, yeah,
Come
they
back for
stop and they
part
stop
two.
and do all sorts of things. But actually, and that's good. That just makes, and all the family are involved and invited. Whereas here, you find with some churches, somebody brings a child in and it sniffs or it coughs.
Yeah, tut
You get the
tut,
looks,
tut tut tut.
yeah, you get
Yeah,
the turning around, and people say, my children never behave like that. Probably didn't.
yeah. Of
Or they were
course,
thrown into Sunday school, so you
being
didn't
a
actually see them.
being a parent is selective, isn't it?
Yeah,
You're always sort of saying, no, my children couldn't have done whatever's been said, but possibly they did. Okay,
yeah,
so now you're here and
yep.
hopefully enjoying it. How do you see your role as Vicar of St. Anne's?
The Vicar of St Anne's is being a chaplain to the whole of the island. I'm here for those of all faiths and none. I want them to stop me in the street. I'm a great one for, I believe in ministry of presence. So I've got my collar on. It's a bit
Yeah,
like the police sergeant. He's in his uniform.
yeah,
You know who you're going to. You know the conversations you're going to have. And it's just about building relationship. I want people to know that I'm here for them, whether they come to church often or never. If they need me, if they just need a shoulder, if they need a funeral, a wedding, a baptism, or whatever, I just
yeah,
want to be here for them.
yeah, yeah. And how's the response been so far? Good?
It's been great.
Mm.
Yeah, no, it's been really great. People are loving. I've just got to remember that if I'm going out, I've got to add another 20 minutes onto my journey, because I will get stopped and people will chat, and oh, actually, I've really got to go now.
And and the great thing is that unlike local politicians, you don't get a kicking.
Well, not all the time. As I say, you can't please all the people all the time. That's all I'll say.
I think that's pretty good. That's almost like the Fifth Amendment. I refuse to answer the question on the grounds it may incriminate me,
Quite
but there we
incriminate
are.
me.
So really, in many respects, your role as vicar is to make the church the heart of the community as much as possible.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah, I don't
from
want
that
the
point,
church
it's a
to be a.
lovely church, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
she's very pretty.
compared with the other ones in the Channel Islands, it's often called the Cathedral of the
It
Channel
is.
Islands, and the acoustics in there are really super. We had the Chamber Music Festival, and
Oh yes.
they played in there one night, and it really filled up, in terms of the gorgeous sounds they were making. So that was very good. So services, how traditional are you on that?
I'm I'm very on one hand, but again, let's talk culture, let's
Hmm.
talk relevance for people. So so we have a prayer book service, 8 o'clock every Sunday morning, said service traditional, that's it.
Yeah.
Beautiful way to start the Sunday.
Okay.
Then we have at the moment it's 10 o'clock, but it's moving to 10:30, but it's moving to 10 o'clock from the 1st of December. And that will be the parish Eucharist. So again, it's a liturgical service, but we're trying to add in a few more bits that people can join in with, and responses, so that everybody feels part of it. They're not just being performed to.
Mm.
It's about people actually feeling a part of the service. I'd like to have every now and again an evensong service, a sung evensong, which again is beautiful. It's a lovely way to finish a weekend. But also I want to bring in puppets and praise.
Mm.
So for younger children, a bit more storytelling through the puppets, So it's what, we wear our jeans and we start with, hot chocolate or a croissant or something.
Yeah.
And again, it's just a gentle introduction into, into the Bible stories.
Mm, mm. So you're sort of, able to develop their religious knowledge effectively,
Yeah.
which
And
is
giving
what
them the
happened when I
chance.
was a kid, when I went to Sunday school, I suppose.
Yeah. And that, I mean, that's changed, because people don't like the thought of school. Why do I want to go to school on a
No,
Sunday?
no.
And I get that. So they had that here a few years ago. There isn't one currently. But again, it's just about building up those relationships. I know it's hard when there's an interregnum
Yeah,
to keep relationships going, for example, with the school, because everybody's trying to do 16 different things. So
yeah,
that's one thing I would like to do. And I've started now to make inroads into just going down to the school, just letting them know who I am. Um, what can I do to help?
yeah,
That's
yeah. What
what would you like to do?
when I was a kid, we used to get stamps depicting biblical scenes every week at Sunday school,
How
and
do you
yeah, and stick them into a
do
little
it?
folder. I suppose if nothing else, it proved that you had actually attended on that particular day. But
That's
how
yeah, that's probably more
how
to it.
things change, how things change. Now, your pastoral duties, help and advice to residents. Um, I mean, you're an open door, are you, in terms of people with their problems?
Yeah. Oh
Mm.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Just
And
emails, phone calls, again, being stopped in the street. Oh, I'm glad I've seen you.
yeah. And I guess, there's a saying, isn't there? A trouble shared is a trouble halved. And presumably by having a chat with you about things, that trouble, it does get halved.
So yeah, I hope people can feel that they can trust me
Yeah.
um with all sorts of things.
Mm.
Uh, and it's not, I mean, it's not counselling by any stretch of the
No.
imagination, and that's not what I'm here for. That's not what I'm trained for. But sometimes a conversation will start, and then the thing that they really want to talk to you about comes out once they feel that they can trust you in the conversation. And that's been lovely. But I suppose I'm learning my way around the island as well at the moment. So, people are helping me, which is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. So you get somebody come along and say, I've come here on behalf of a friend,
Yeah,
and this is a friend's problem, but it's their
yeah,
problem, probably
yeah.
from that point of view. Um, it's not exactly a confessional, is it, in the Catholic sense of the word? It's more a question of, light chat, I suppose.
Yeah. And so that sometimes people just need to be listened to. They don't need an answer. They
Mm,
don't need a lecture. They
no.
just need to be listened to and loved.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we all need that sometimes.
And you obviously are also involved in care for the sick and the dying. Um, so you make hospital visits and things like that.
Yeah, hospital visits, communion, for communion or just for visits.
Mm,
And the care home as well. We go in there once a week as the ordinary churches together, which is brilliant over here. I absolutely love that. I feel really connected and really upheld by colleagues as well, because it can be lonely in the pulpit.
yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
you know, and it's nice to just have someone that you can not share people's stories with, but actually just find, actually I've had a really rough day, and it's just nice to have somebody go, yeah, I know how you feel.
So you think you can see a situation where you try and pull Catholic and Methodist in a little bit towards you, as it were.
I think there's a history of that here anyway. So
Mm,
Remembrance Sunday will be an ecumenical
yes.
service. Everyone
Yeah.
gets to do a bit. Same
Yeah.
with homecoming. That's a big ecumenical service. Last week before, maybe last Monday, we did the blessing of the boat service,
Right.
which again
Yeah.
we were all part of, which was lovely.
I had a friend who unfortunately died, and he was and out atheist. And his wife managed to get the Anglican, the Catholic, and the Methodist ministers all into church to pray for him.
Brilliant.
And good luck. I hope he made it, but
Sure he did.
it was
Sure
it
he
was
did.
it was so against what his outlook was from that point of view. But there we are. So
They pushed him to pearly gates.
yeah, very much so. We're coming up towards Christmas, so that's going to be fairly busy, I guess.
I
Anything
love Christmas.
anything
Eh,
special on the horizon?
Birth of Jesus. It's So there's again, it's a historical thing that many people do. The Christingle service, you
Yeah,
have the oranges and the candle and the sweets. Um, and I like to have that in February at Candlemas. We
right.
we preach
Okay.
about Jesus being the light of the world. We say the light of the world when we with a baptism. This is your candle. This is the light of the world. Taking it in. Christmas writes itself.
Yeah.
You don't need to add anything into Christmas. So we're going to go out and do some carol singing around the pubs,
Hmm.
and hopefully we'll pick people up and take them round with us. There's some late night shopping going on here. Santa's coming in, which will be fabulous. We're having midnight mass this year, which I don't think they've had for a few years here, or a couple of years, which will be great. And then more of a family service on Christmas Day, because Christmas Day being midweek,
Yeah.
we won't have the early service. There'll be a 10 o'clock communion, family communion. Wear your Christmas jumpers, bring in
Yeah.
your presents, show us what you've got, and
And then
just yeah,
and then you'll release them for lunch.
absolutely. Lots of turkey.
My son lives down in Spain with his wife and two kids. And in Spain, it's interesting because they don't really put too much emphasis on the 25th of December, but they do on King's Day when
Tiffany,
when,
yeah,
when the wise men were supposed to have arrived. So it's funny,
yes,
isn't it, how different parts of Christianity put different interpretations on things.
yeah, yeah. So we had so Christmas presents were Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
Christmas Day was, and you had the Christmas Eve feast.
Mm,
But mind you, in Spain, there's lots of feasting all the time,
absolutely.
and so there should be.
Well, I have to say it's been a great delight to talk to you today. Thank you so much for sparing me some time because I know you're a
No,
very,
absolute pleasure.
very busy lady, but wish you all the best and every success with the church. I'm sure that, you've got the sort of attitude that means that it's going to work.
I hope so. I hope so. Thank you, Tony. Thanks for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you.